Hello, nonprofit leaders. I'm Sarah Olivieri, your host, and this podcast is here to assist people like you, executive directors, board members, and other nonprofit leaders make a bigger impact with insights, tips, and lessons learned from nonprofit leaders and experts. Having been an executive director, a board member, and now a consultant and coach, I truly understand the challenges you face. And that's why I'm here. I'm all about working smarter, not harder, so you can make a bigger impact without the burnout. And so is our sponsor, DonorBox. DonorBox isn't just a suite of helpful fundraising tools, it's a partner that helps you raise more money and supports you in retaining your donors. I love their forward-thinking approach. Visit donorbox.org to learn more. And don't forget to sign up for the Inspired Nonprofit Leadership newsletter, where you'll get bite-sized, actionable tips just for nonprofit leaders like you, delivered weekly to your inbox. Sign up at inspirednonprofitleadership.com/sign up. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. My guest for this episode is Sloane Keen, who is an advocate for social change through youth membership. She joined Big Brothers Big Sisters in 2013 as the Director of Development, charged with creating new funding strategies that tripled the agency's revenue and doubled the number of matches supported annually. Since then, in 2018, she became the CEO and has continued the growth trajectory of the network's second largest agency nationwide. Sloane is committed to strengthening the organization's impact on disconnected youth across Orange, Riverside, and San Bernardino counties. Welcome, Sloane. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I'd love it if we can start. Just tell us a little bit about yourself personally and your journey of how you arrived here today.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be here. And all of my fellow nonprofit executives, it's a pleasure to meet you virtually. So my name is Sloane Keen. I am currently the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters. I actually wear several hats today, so I'll go forwards to go backwards. I am the CEO over Orange County, Riverside, and San Bernardino. But I also play a major role in the state of California. So I chair the California Association of Big Brothers Big Sisters. And that is important because we have 14 agencies from Humboldt County all the way down to San Diego. So wherever you are, if mentorship is something you're interested in, we have an office near you. And in addition to that, my entire, I would say, focus with mentorship is volunteer acquisition and really inspiring really anyone. And we'll unpack that when we talk about a couple of the platforms of mentorship that we offer today, but really to step up for service. About a year and a half ago, I was appointed to the California Volunteer Commission. And I'm up in Sacramento at least once a quarter talking to very interesting people and hoping to lobby and legislate with the state on the importance of service and how important it is for us to communicate that statewide. So I've got my hand in a couple of different things here, Sarah, but what's interesting is how did I get started? I actually had no experience in the nonprofit industry, which I like to say.
As most nonprofit leaders begin.
Because I think sometimes, particularly today, I talk to a lot of young people and they feel like they have to have their whole life planned out at age like 22. And the reality of it is life is just a series of really important decisions that you make that lead you to where you ultimately end up. And I like to think I'm just getting started. So I don't want to go anywhere near the end. But my whole background is, again, sales and marketing. And about 15 years ago, I've lived in New York, I've lived in LA, I moved back to Orange County, and I became a big sister. So my experience, my role in the nonprofit industry started, I like to say, through the front door. So I became a volunteer. And one of the best things about doing that is you get to really understand intrinsically what different organizations need in order to thrive. And I have a phrase that I use often, and I'll use it with you, is I think the most successful nonprofit leaders are people who have been successful, who are successful, and now they want to be significant. So you bring all of the skills that you have generated with whatever life experience, education, career, and then you bring all of that to the nonprofit industry where you do more with less and everything is dynamic. And 15 years ago, I became a big sister. 13 years ago, I started with Big Brothers as head of development. And almost 8 years ago now, I became CEO. So that's my story.
I love it. You're making me think about an old statistic in my head. The second most common background for profit CEOs is from a marketing background. But that is not at all the case in the nonprofit world, which I think is unfortunate because I think a marketing and sales background is so useful. And I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about some of the ways in which that background have helped you be a better CEO of a nonprofit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did not know that, Sarah, but that does not surprise me. When you think about, and so I'll talk about sales and marketing. I joke the S&M of the world. In the nonprofit industry, and I'm sure you can identify, the word sales gets a dirty rap. And so I think what I choose to look at is sales is just marketing yourself and your organization and your brand in an organic and authentic way. To your point, I don't know how you can truly breathe life into your brand, get your community excited about supporting you and or using you today. I think I heard the other day that there are more services available today to our communities than there have ever been. Now, the challenge is communicating that to the communities that need it, connecting services to clients, right? And then getting people excited about what you're doing and getting them to invest in who you are and what you're all about. I would agree. I think that if you look at the most successful nonprofits, whether it's regional or it's national, they do a great job breathing life into their brand, which is the heart of what marketing is. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to reiterate for everybody listening, like marketing is effective communication. It's about funneling the people you can help the most to your door and making sure that people who would be better helped elsewhere don't waste their time at your door. So it's so meaningful. And one of my favorite ways to think about sales is it's a way to help people make informed decisions about what solutions are best for them. And when we frame it like that, right, that's so relevant to how you bring people into your programs, your donors, that you're having the right fit donors, your staff, right? Having people join your team and it's the right fit for them. It's all super, super relevant. And I think that's so important what you said about there are more services than ever, which means the skills and tools of marketing are more important than ever because like we get overwhelmed when there are too many choices, right? And we need to communicate the value of our services. I recently had some personal experience with the world of support for teenagers. I have a stepson who's struggling, and it's been quite challenging navigating how to get support and who to get support. And boy, do I wish everybody out there had better marketing so that I could figure out what to do and not waste my time calling people who aren't really a good fit. So that's really key. What are some other key leadership lessons that you feel like you've learned, especially transitioning from development to CEO?
Oh gosh, where do I start? To just quickly close out the last conversation on communication, when you think about the ecosystem of a nonprofit and how, because you brought up some really important aspects. People think, and they're right when they say to me, oh my gosh, you are the CEO of a nonprofit. That must be so rewarding. And they're right. At the heart of what I do, I don't function on the daily very different than a CEO of a for-profit company. And I think that is something that good nonprofit CEOs understand because we run a business. We just run a business with a double bottom line, right? And so when you think about the ecosystem and the importance of communication, first and foremost, you have to bring talent. You have to inspire talent onto your teams, right? Because we talk a lot about and I know you and I share the same theory on abundance versus scarcity. I think if the world particularly nonprofit world viewed things with abundance. We would see more collaborations versus silos. But in general, we do more with less, and particularly financials, right? So
Yeah.
we can't, the lure to coming into the nonprofit industry is not the paycheck, right? So you really, the culture and the workplace and the mission, and frankly, like your ability to market a brand that people, talented individuals want to be part of is so key, right? So let's just call it talent acquisition, people, right? That's an important part of your brand. The second is we have the luxury of having a board of directors. You asked me, like, so I'm going to combine two questions together. Really smart nonprofit CEOs know how to wield and build a strong board. Sometimes I find that when there's friction between the CEO and the board, that leads to a lot of toxicity, and that really shouldn't exist. In a really smart nonprofit CEO, you build a board that you want, right? You identify what does a board member look like for your unique needs, and then you build that board. And then the idea is that board helps you then build a stronger brand, right? You are the general and they are the army out in the community on the daily, talking about your mission, getting people excited about joining, investing. My number one CEO 101, make sure that you have a board that believes in what you think the organization should look for. And your job as CEO is to constantly feed and build that board. That's really important. And your brand, when you talk about marketing, that is really, how are you talking about your board members? Are you, when you're bringing on a new cohort, are you taking out ads in the business journal? Does your website articulate the value of your board? Do you use that when you're trying to fund? There are so many valuable aspects of creating a board. And frankly, for me, I have a large board. I'm not recommending this for everybody, but we have 35 plus individuals, and they're all mentors for me. They've all had such amazing experiences in different areas, and it's a master class that I get for free just by inspiring them. I joke that they pay me because I get them on the board, and I get them to donate their money, right? So they pay me to be my mentors. And so I do think that is, from a leadership perspective, that is something that I feel very strongly about. And it all ties back to that marketing and sales aspect that you originally threw out.
Yeah, I hear you saying the ability to build a team of people who are supporting you is really key to leadership. And for those out there listening going, oh my God, my board is difficult, or I'll never get there, I'll just give you, there's other ways of doing what you just described. And it doesn't have to be your board of directors. You can have a board of advisors, you can have a street team, you can have anything. I think that while for some organizations, like for you, it's made sense for that team who supports you to be the board of directors, people can be just as helpful not as a board of directors. That's not the only channel. The key thing is that you build this, I used to call it like human capital, right? These relationships who you will offer advice and guidance and expertise and will listen, be a sounding board, right? Those are critical to leaders. In fact, I love that you said you have the privilege of having a board. I know successful for-profit business owners, not public companies, smaller private companies, who build a board of advisors for themselves and ask them to hold them accountable and look at their financials because it makes them better business leaders. So they're doing that in reverse.
And what's interesting is when I first became CEO, I thought, oh, geez, I've never done this before. I need to seek out. And there are groups that you're exactly right, that essentially mirror a board, right? People who help you do it. And at the end of the day, what I love about this whole conversation is it ties directly back to mentorship. So all of those words you just used, accountability, champion, resource, social capital, right? It's not all of that stuff is really what, in the end, on the daily, we offer to youth in our community. And I love walking the walk, right? And mentoring our own staff and then being mentored by, which is hard, I think. Don't you think, Sarah? Like, the more successful you get in your career, I think sometimes it's more difficult to accept the mentorship.
Yeah, it can. Yeah, it can be harder to accept. It can be harder to find. I love being mentored, but I'm at a stage in my, not but, and I'm at a stage in my career where I go out and I look for mentors. I'm like, no, you're not. I need you. You're not like I engaged you to mentor me, and I am mentoring you. And I love helping people, but it becomes harder, and you have to get intentional about getting into rooms where you are the least smart person in the room or the least experienced related to whatever it is that you're trying to learn. And it's easy to fall into those rooms when you're a beginner or a newbie, as my child would say, but it gets harder, and you have to be more intentional as your skills go up and your experience goes up. So it can be harder to find. And I think it is, whether or not it's hard to receive, to me, just my own experience is you have to practice being open to receiving the new information, even of the day. As a leader, and business owner, I have a practice every day of just like, I do a guided meditation and I visually let go of the ties from yesterday so that I am in a free, neutral, energetic space to receive today. And that isn't just like a psychological thing that's happening in a way. It's also like, I love brain science, and I'm very aware of like cognitive biases and recency bias and some cost bias. And so that's part of my way to let go of those biases so that I don't bring them into my day, and I can think fresh about the problems I have to solve today. Because that is our work often as leaders. We have to solve, the higher the leader you are, the more you have to solve the hard problems, and which means they have no obvious answer, and the risk of getting it wrong is like pretty bad. Those difficult decisions. Yeah, that's really powerful. I want to go more into mentorship, because you've brought up like being mentored and being a mentor as a leader to your staff. And also, we don't talk a lot on this podcast about programming, but I think mentorship and volunteerism is something that a lot of nonprofits are using or would like to use or could be using. So I'd love to hear more of your thoughts about what makes good mentorship, what makes good mentorship programming, and how do we incorporate this volunteer piece, which is a unique advantage we have as nonprofits.
So great topic. So I think on several levels, when you think about mentorship, you've thrown out there several topics. So you're probably very familiar with the servant leader paradigm, and do I follow it exclusively? I don't know. But I do think that what we find with mentorship is, and exactly what you just shared with us, is that you actually get as much as you give, right?
Yeah.
And typically, sometimes in mentorship, there's a power dynamic, right? Somebody knows more, somebody knows less. And so I actually think that's beautiful. Like the exchange of experiences is part of what really, to your point, you have to be open to that. So what I do with my team and what I find very effective is that I would say I joke that I'm a helicopter. And I don't know if there's a couple different books out there, but it's specifically a helicopter because helicopters versus planes go up and they go down. Vertical.
Okay. Yeah.
Down, where planes go fast and quick, but they do not go up and down. So I think the key to leading a team and being a good mentor is that you have to come down to the 10,000 view or the 5,000 view perspective, roll up your sleeves, get in it, and then you have to like hover back up to 30 and then give people space to operate, to make some mistakes. And then, but again, I can hover back down. So, I can jump in before the mistakes become catastrophic, right? And that's really difficult to do. That is the journey of leadership, is to figure out how to be both present and then also absent. And so that I think is an interesting, and you just have to play with it to see. But the key to all of that is hiring really dynamic people who fit the fabric of your organization. Yeah. And when it comes to volunteers, we have a really unique proposition because our volunteers, so the only way mentorship becomes scalable or accessible to our most vulnerable populations is by bringing in a volunteer component. if I had to pay every volunteer out there, right now we have over 2,000 mentors mentoring youth between the ages of 8 and 28, right? That would be untenable. We would not be able to financially afford that. So what we need to do is inspire and motivate people to step up, men and women who want to change the life of a young person. And that could look like education. It could look like safety and stability. It could look like, really, I need a summer internship and a job. And I'm first gen and my family has never gone to college. They've never done this before. I need someone to help me navigate some very complicated systems that I'm not used to. So mentorship is meant to meet the person where they're at, which is why the scalable piece of it is so important. That being said, in today's day and age, getting people to volunteer their time for free, particularly in Southern California, where the cost of living is very high, has proven to have some challenges.
Yeah.
And so that is, and everybody has challenges in their nonprofit. But for us, it's a critical challenge for me to solve because we cannot effectively match the hundreds of kids I have today on a wait with a mentor if I don't inspire and motivate people to step up and volunteer.
Yeah. And I hear that. My brain's going, dip, dip. There's that marketing and communications background skill set to
That's
play
right.
because I would make the case your mentors are getting paid in valuable experiences and lessons that they are going to learn from being a mentor for themselves, because there is so much value you get when you're the mentor. I'd say it's almost better to be the mentor. Not that it really isn't, they're apples versus oranges, but being a mentor is so valuable. You gain so much for yourself in insights of yourself, insights about the world, connections to your community. Being a mentor, here I am just like, you can play this episode for your potential mentors.
Yeah.
But when you're a mentor, I think one of the valuable things is, and you get to use your connections and make introductions in a way that's valuable to your relationships, because then your connection gets to help somebody advance who is probably deserving of advancement. And people like helping feels good. It is a really good emotional feedback. It's way better for you going on a shopping binge or eating a bunch of food that isn't really good for you, but maybe tastes really good temporarily. And when you share that value with one of your relationships, one of your good relationships, those relationships get even stronger. And you now have even more relationship capital in your life. So there's so much to get from mentoring. Like, they should be paying you, not just volunteering, for the opportunity to mentor.
Oh, preach, Sarah. This is great. You're selling it for me. I love it. I love it. And you're exactly right. And the highest and best use of my career at this point is I'm a connector, right?
Yeah.
I connect people with purpose. And if you do that well, to your point, they will invest and listen to you. So it's one of those things that, do I do it because I'm looking to create this? Is it fundraising? No, but does it create investment opportunities? Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think if you operate authentically and you're able to communicate the value of your brand and why people want to be associated with it, why wouldn't you want to invest in something that makes you feel so good, right?
The money starts to come in. I've been thinking a lot about fundraising and what I call high touch relationship fundraising, which others might call major gifts. I'm designing a program around it, using my kind of educator's hat, thinking about how do we frame this work so that it feels easier and feels fun? Because I think too many nonprofit leaders don't do it because at first it seems like it isn't going to feel fun. It feels like people go into it thinking, I'm going to have to ask for money. People are going to say no. And one of the concepts that I've been just sitting in has really been resonating with clients of mine is, you build the relationship, you build joy, connection until they spontaneously give to you. And only after that point are we even thinking about asking them to give. So just taking off all that pressure. And I truly believe that this is how the great folks are doing it anyway, because you don't ask until you have that meaningful enough relationship that you're at that level of relationship. I like to think about what party would you invite them to, right? Is this a relationship you'd invite them to, like your backyard barbecue? Is this a come to my birthday kind of relationship? Is this a come to family Thanksgiving dinner? Like those, I think when we put in that context, it helps us think about what's the level of the relationship. And I think you don't even have to worry about, are you at the level where you ask them until they've already given to you. And I know from the experience of like people see the value from communication and they start giving to you. And I started having this experience working with clients on cleaning up their operations and strategy. We didn't even, and clients would say to me, like, I've just ignored fundraising for the past year and people are sending me checks. I got a grant I didn't apply for. Because that's the power of like when you clean up even your messaging internally, it starts to show and people are like, I want what she's having. Put me on that bandwagon. What are your thoughts about that?
I love the way that you just articulated that. Like, what kind of party would you invite them to? I never considered it that way, but that's exactly right. And I do think that sometimes in the world of nonprofit, it sometimes seems like the issues we are trying to solve are so big that we joke about like working ourselves out of a job. That is the goal, right? And sometimes we get lost in the journey. And I think that really reconnecting with creating relationships, and I say this to my kids all the time, like, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so I think sometimes like some of the issues seem so big that they just become overwhelming and paralyzing. And then you forget why you even got in this to begin with. And if you could back that up and start really realizing the value of like one conversation again. You and I might not change the world today, but if we change 2 or 3 people's perspectives, or we inspire and motivate 2 or 3 people who then inspire 2 or 3 more, we have this domino effect, this multiplier effect of everybody we connect with has influence over other people. And so that's the way. So when you think about, so that's the fatigue of trying to solve these very large issues that frankly we don't get a margin, we get like a fraction of funding to do. Like, it can get overwhelming, but at the end of the day, I like to say we choose this. Every day I wake up and I choose to do this. And if that's the choice you make, then choose to bring people into the conversation. And I promise it will multiply. It always does.
Yeah, I love that. I love just kind of like touch on some of the themes, like that mentorship is a form of relationship building that is like one of the most, I think, valuable types of relationship dynamics we can have. And just that the skills of communication that weave their way all through nonprofits. I've given a talk a few times about like roles and leadership roles. And I often get a good response when I talk about how there shouldn't really be a job in your nonprofit of like marketing and communications. Marketing communications is a skill, and we should have our jobs, especially our leadership jobs, focused on the outcome, right? So your human resources person is going to use marketing and communications. Your development people are going to use marketing and communications. Your program design or get people into your program people, they're going to use marketing and communication. But as a tool, it's just a tool. It's not an end result in itself. And I think when we frame it that way as a tool that lives throughout our organizations, we also get to leave behind we have marketing communications. We need to do Facebook because we need to do Facebook because people do Facebook, which doesn't really necessarily move the needle on anything in particular.
That's correct. Okay, so I love that. I think that's so smart because it ties into when people say everybody on the team is a fundraiser and everyone like you see their face freeze up. But the reality of it is if everybody is a marketer and a communicator, then you all have an opportunity to be a brand ambassador. And what do people invest in? They invest in brands, right? Why did you buy those shoes? Those Nikes are no different than that other shoe that cost a fraction of the cost. You invested in the brand because it means something to you. So I love that. And I think breaking it down like that is so essential. And I think that's so smart. So Kudos to you. Yes.
Yeah.
PSA for Sarah as a consultant. I love it.
Thank you. This has been such a valuable conversation, and it's got my wheels turning to the next level about mentorship at all its levels, from the board into the programming. I hate to call like one hire, or I'll do them like left to right, from between the board and the programming and the staff.
Yeah.
So valuable for folks going, yes, I want to learn more. Who should be reaching out to you? What's the best way to follow your work and learn from your wisdom?
Yeah. So I'm realizing as we're talking, our like my ecosystem, if you feel like you want to get more involved out on a board capacity, would love to talk to you. If I've inspired and motivated you to work for me, I want to hear from you. And if you're really being called to service right now and you want to hear more about how to be a volunteer and work with a young person today, all those things you can get to me at ocbigs.org. And from there, you can volunteer, you can donate, you can get involved, you can do whatever you want. You can follow me on LinkedIn. I try, to your point, doing social media, if it's not part of a larger consistent strategy, doesn't really work. So I try to do a lot of thought leadership on LinkedIn. I try to really promote our partners across all of the different platforms, whether it's corporate or it's nonprofit or it's foundational. Yeah, so you can find us on any social media. And we would love to hear from you, honestly. And if you're in the Inland Empire, it's iebigs.org.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you shared those. And I encourage folks, I just made that comment, don't be on social media, just be on social media. But LinkedIn is a place where the goal is to build valuable relationships to help move your organization or business forward. That is the context. And if you're a nonprofit leader, that should be one of your goals should be building relationships to move your organization forward. So you should get on LinkedIn and you should connect with Sloane. You can connect with me. It is a great place to be and very purpose oriented. So do connect with Sloane in all those places. Follow her work. I can tell you are just a fantastic nonprofit leader, and I bet you would be amazing to work for. I love that you put a plug for that. Just highlighting all the great things you've done in past episodes, talking about, I think I just did a thing on it the other day. You should always be building your list of people you'd like to hire, even when you don't have any job opening positions. And you just exemplified that perfectly. So big gold nugget there too for everybody.
Thank you for the platform. I really, honestly, when you talk about communication, it takes podcasts like yours. So thank you for doing that and committing your wisdom in your career to giving us a platform.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sloane. And thank you out there for listening and everything you do to make our communities better. Take a moment to nurture a relationship today and just relish the joy of having the relationship without worrying about what you will get out of it. And until next time, I wish you all the best.
You've been listening to Inspired Nonprofit Leadership. Thanks so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode or the bonus episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a rating and review, and be sure to share with your friends and colleagues. Tune in every week for more useful insights and wisdom on nonprofit leadership. Thanks so much for all you do for the communities you serve. Until next time, all the best.